Now, though, let's return to the migration figures announced this morning and the news that net long-term migration in the 12 months to the end of June was up to 260,000 from 182,000 in the previous 12-month period. It suggests the government is very unlikely to meet its target of bringing immigration down to the tens of thousands by the end of its term of office. Well, with me now is the UKIP leader, Nigel Farage. Thank you for coming in. Well, it doesn't look like there's any way that target will be met now, does it?
No, I mean, it represents a total failure of what David Cameron said to the electorate in 2010. Although, to be honest, it was never really a genuine pledge. What they were doing 5 years ago is they were still trying to pretend to the British public that immigration and the European Union were separate questions. And now, of course, people realise that we have a total open door to nearly 500 million people and we have no control.
The government is looking, obviously, at what it can do, looking at areas like benefits. Is that going to make a difference?
No.
Why not?
All of this,
you know, we've heard before about the fact that benefits, some have claimed, have been a pull factor to this country. What do you think is the pull factor, if you think changes like that won't make a difference?
In-work benefits are a pull factor, of course they are. You know, you come to Britain, you earn minimum wage, you qualify automatically for tax credits, housing benefit, child benefit and all of those things. So in-work benefits are a big pull factor. But even without in-work benefits or potential out-of-work benefits, the pull factor is, I don't think people realise just how poor the communities in places like Romania and Bulgaria are. I don't blame anybody from those countries from wanting to come to this country. If I were in their shoes, I'd do the same thing. But the point about this is that a massive oversupply, particularly in the unskilled labour market, has led to wages in this country going down and to massive pressure on public services. And for large parts of this country, frankly, towns and cities that people find somewhat difficult to recognise. So the argument must be that we need an immigration policy where we control the quantity and the quality of who comes to Britain, and we cannot do that as members of the European Union. So you can talk about benefits. I've no doubt tomorrow Mr Cameron will do all of these things. It doesn't stop the fact that we have an open door.
When you look, though, at the aspects of what you're talking about, and firstly the immigrants coming to this country, there is a net benefit to the UK of £20 billion between 2001 and 2011. Well, so if people come here and they work hard and pay their taxes, what's wrong with that?
If that figure's right, it represents less than 0.5%, less than 1% of the overall tax take. So even if the figure is right, in financial terms, that is pretty marginal. But in social terms, you know, I would argue very strongly, this has had a detrimental effect on the lives of millions of people in Britain who find themselves actually much worse off than they were 10 years ago. And you know, never before in our history have we had open door immigration like this. It doesn't make sense. We need to get a grip, and the only way we can do it, frankly, is to have a referendum on EU membership and to debate this honestly and properly.
And there will be a referendum on EU membership.
Well, I don't know. We keep being promised one, and
well, I mean, he's been clear, hasn't he, David Cameron?
Do you know what? He was very clear. He was very clear. He said, "I give you this cast iron guarantee that if I become Prime Minister, there'll be a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty," and that was in 2008. So we've had lots of promises from lots of parties. The only way there is going to be a referendum is if we get enough UKIP MPs into Westminster next year.
Well, but on that, I mean, the Tories will say, if you vote UKIP at the next election, you'll get Labour, and then you've got less of a chance of a referendum. The Tories have said they will hold a referendum.
It is actually comical, because we have some polling data coming out today from Doncaster North, Ed Miliband's constituency, which shows UKIP now in a strong second place. The message in Doncaster and in the whole of the north of England is very clear. If you vote Tory, you will get Miliband.
But just going back to you saying that the only way for anyone to guarantee a referendum is to vote UKIP, isn't the only certain way to guarantee a referendum to vote Tory, because they are pledging that
we
that's
are
what they will
6 months away from an election. I would be very surprised if Labour didn't promise a referendum too. They've all promised a referendum.
Well, they haven't, so we're talking with where we are now.
But in previous elections, we've had all sorts of promises on this, and actually, nobody was promising a referendum 2 years ago, midway through this Parliament. The reason the whole referendum debate is back on the agenda is because of the rise in the strength of UKIP, and one of the contributory factors is that people do not want open-door immigration. They don't want the waiting time at A&E to go up. They don't want the chronic shortage of primary school places. And all of that, I'm afraid, is being caused by mass immigration on a scale that this country has never seen before.
If there were a change in policy, should it be retrospective? Should people have to leave?
No, I've never said that. And since 2004, when we let 8 former communist countries come into a political union with us, I've made it clear every single day since then that retrospectively you should never say to anybody, you've come here legally and in good faith.
Mark Reckless seemed to think that during the
No, he didn't.
campaign,
He didn't, but he got involved in a very technical dispute about our negotiations once we've left the EU using Article 50. Never, ever, ever would UKIP suggest that retrospectively should we change the law.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much.
You.
Thank you.